What's up, YouTube? This video I actually want to talk about upgrading a ball python to a bigger tub. So I have a 12 quart rack, so this is a DIY rack. They're all 12 quarts. Every time a snake gets too big, so I usually stop at about 600 grams on the 12 quart tubs, and 600 grams is pushing it. I would really say about 450 grams, and then I would put them over to a bigger tub. But I don't have a bunch of tubs where it's like, oh, in between sizes. I go from the 12 quart tub to 55 40s, and then if they get too big for that, which is usually about 2,000 grams, then I'll put them into a 70-30, which is what I have behind me here. So the 70-30, if I have room in a 55-40 tub, I'll upgrade from the 12 quart tub to that, and I usually don't have to worry about feeding too much in there because usually it's not too much of a difference. It's just longer. It's about the same width, it's just longer. So usually I don't care too much about that. But when I go from a 12 quart tub to the 70-30s or the 70 series tub, I have a problem, right? So this is when I talked about in the previous video about feeding. This is when I would use those snake hides. So I have one right here. You can see that there's a snake hide in here. The snake hide is actually about the same size as the 12 quart tub. So this female actually has been in here for about 2 or 3 months now. So she's actually been behind me in several videos. But this 12 quart tub here allows her to feel secure, allows her to feel safe, instead of having all this extra space. So what happens is when I feed them, I always put the rat right in front of the snake hide hole, and then hoping that they hear the rat and they smell the rat. And then if the rat goes into the hide, even better. But for the most part, the snake will come out after I close the tub, and she will take the rat. So the reason I do that is because when they feel secure, when they feel like they haven't upgraded in size too much, when they still feel snug, they take food a lot better. And that's because that's literally how they are in the wild. They're in a snug spot. They're in a termite mound. They're in a burrow. They're in something tight for them. And that's how they stay and they wait for food. They're opportunistic eaters, so they don't eat as often as we feed them in captivity. So that snugness there allows them to actually eat their food a lot better. And I actually have success with that. For example, this pied het lav female here, she actually was not eating for about a month. And it was because I upgraded her into this tub. It actually didn't have a hide at the moment. I have several hides, but I had one that was being used for a snake that was still growing into the 70-30 tub or the 70 series tub. So eventually I did put a hide in here, and she has been eating rats nonstop ever since I put that hide in there, and it's because she feels secure. So you can see this E right here. She just ate. What I do with feeding is I try to feed a few snakes at a time. I don't just put a bunch of rats in, because the thing about having 46 snakes, now obviously there's people out there that have 200 snakes, 300 snakes, 500 snakes, but I'm by myself. So the thing about having 46 snakes is if 46 snakes don't eat, that's 46 rats that I have to put back somewhere. And if I am buying rats and I don't have room for them, then I'm going to have to figure out a place to put 46 rats. So what I do is I feed about 12 snakes at the time, and then I'll check the next day. Now, obviously, if you have a bunch of snakes, it probably is easier just to go and throw a bunch of rats in all the tubs. But again, I only have 46, so it's not too bad. So I feed 12 over there, and I feed about 4 or 5 over here. It really just depends on what I have, because I do breed my own rats. So if I don't have smalls or I don't have mediums at the moment, I'll just wait one more week for those rats to get to size, and then I'll feed the snake. So obviously, you can feed smaller meals, no big deal there. But adequate meals work a lot better because they get all the protein they're supposed to have. Obviously, don't feed bigger than they're supposed to have. For example, this banana het clown, this pastel banana het clown. So you can see she is big, right? So I put a big rat in there, and she ate it, no problem. But then she went 3 weeks without eating. I mentioned this in previous videos. You got to make sure you're feeding adequate meals. You don't want to feed too big. And if you feed too small, it's not a big deal. You just got to feed more often. So she ate a big meal. And I knew she was going to take it because the rat was about the size of her body. So I knew she was going to take it, no problem. It's just the fact that she didn't go. She went 3 weeks without eating after the fact. And now she's back. I know that she's developing follicles, so I'm actually going to start feeding smaller meals now. Because if you watch my last video about snakes, I talked about how Billy said that if you're feeding bigger meals, the follicles are fighting for space, and eventually the snake is like, I need food, I don't need follicles, so they absorb their follicles, put them back to the smallest size, and then they just continue to eat. So a lot of them are in these tubs. It makes it a lot easier for me. I don't have to worry about getting an in-between size rack. So I just go from 12 quart to a 55 to a 70, or if I don't have a 55, I'll just put them in a 70 and put those hides in there, and it seems to work pretty well. So if you're ever dealing with an issue of your snake not eating and they're in a tub that's pretty big for their size, so as I mentioned, I put them in the 12 quart tub all the way until about 450 grams, 600 grams if I'm pushing it, and then 5540 is up to 2,000 grams, and then 70-30 is for the rest of their life. You know, they don't have to go into anything bigger after a 70-30 or after a 70 series tub. Obviously, if you go enclosure route, you can go biggest enclosure you got. Obviously, they'll move around during the day if you don't have a light on and all that, but for the most part, they're going to hide around because that's what ball pythons do. Now, if you made it this far into the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything that I'm putting out in the future. Peace.